Good morning, everyone. We're happy to be here today to be able to share with you our journey of embracing our generative AI at American International School. So we are going to be looking at what our background is as a school, so you know our context, how we've gotten started, and what it's looked like in applications so far since essentially March, I believe, what we've been able to do at AIS as we're getting started incorporating AI into our learning at AIS. So first, to introduce ourselves, my name is Kathleen ABEL. I'm the Director of Learning Innovation at AIS. These are my colleagues, Mr. Matt Wise, our Director of Educational Technology, and Mr. Jeremy Green, who is our Learning Activator. And together, the three of us form what we've named the SIT team, and that is our Curriculum, Instruction, and Technology team at AIS. And as a team, we pretty much guide all learning at AIS. We're responsible for professional learning for faculty and staff, and we help teachers with student learning as well in pretty much all aspects. And so we've been excited about embracing the promises of generative AI in a learning context for our students at our school. So to give you a little bit of background on American International School, if you're not familiar with us, we're kind of tiny and hidden in Kowloon Tong. We began as a school in 1986 as the California International School and have been accredited by the Western Association of Schools and Colleges since 1987. We have a student population of around 800 students, and that's from early childhood 1 up through grade 12. So we start at 3 and end at 17, 18. And we're through school, and we're all on one very small campus. And so students have lots of opportunity to interact with each other across divisions. This is our AIS Feature Framework. It guides all learning at AIS. And the part we're mostly going to be focusing on today, or is related to how we've incorporated generative AI, is the way that we do learning at AIS. And that is through our social, personal, and applied learning model. And this is backed by our AIS essential practices, which incorporate things like project-based learning, generating questions and discussions, giving feedback, so on and so forth. Our curriculum is based on American educational standards, and we're very much experiential based. Students do a lot of hands-on learning, a lot of group learning, and again, social learning, where they're working in teams. It's personalized to them. We use a lot of adaptive technologies in terms of assessment and production of ideas so that students can really have a lot of choice in how they learn. And we have a shallow leadership structure at our school. We've got a small leadership team, and we distribute leadership through our mid-level leads and through student leaders. So we have a little bit of our mid-level leads help with facilitating professional learning for faculty. And one of our student leadership organizations is our Techsperts, and they help champion the integration of technology across the school. So that gives you a little bit of our background as a school and what we do and why we do it. And so when we came back from our winter break this year, all of us could talk about was generative AI and what impact it was going to have, and the normal amount of half panic, half excitement as we were discussing it in our office. And we realized pretty quickly that this was something we couldn't ignore. We started with some informal polling of our students, and none of them were using it, of course, but they all just happened to have a friend that was using it. And so we knew it was in our students' hands already. We could not ignore it. We couldn't just say, well, don't use it, don't cheat, and just leave it at that. We knew this was an opportunity for us to find another tool to put into students' hands and be something that could be a big problem for us down the road if we tried to pretend it wasn't there. So we started doing research. We were having discussions. And one of the things we came across as we were doing some preliminary work was this quote. And the part I want to really draw attention to is the end part here. This idea: it's not going to be AI replacing lawyers. It's going to be lawyers working with AI, replacing lawyers who don't work with AI. And we had a bad example of a lawyer working with AI this morning during our keynote speech. But this idea was really important to us in terms of how we approach this with students. This is a tool that could improve the way that they learn and the way that they work, and they have to learn how to use it well, and they have to learn how to use it responsibly and ethically. And so our goal as a curriculum team was to figure out how to do that, how to support teachers and helping their students learn how to do that. So this idea right here is really kind of our guiding idea in terms of how we work with generative AI on campus so far. So we had a few goals and a few concerns. We wanted to make sure that we could fully embrace this opportunity. We want our students to be good digital citizens. We wanted to protect the teacher autonomy in the classroom and make sure they could say no if they wanted to say no to students using AI. And we wanted to ensure that the information and work that students were doing was accurate, that they were getting good information to base their work on. And so that raised some related concerns for us. We worked with student focus groups, we worked with parent focus groups, we worked with faculty focus groups, and out of all of that, we determined that we needed to establish a foundation for ourselves as a school. And so out of that came our generative AI position statement. It's not a policy statement yet because we're still in the exploratory phase, we feel, but this establishes some groundwork and expectations so that we have a shared understanding amongst our community. It was really important to us that everyone was very clear on what we were doing, what was happening with this technology and how it was going to support learning. It gives guidelines for teachers and students when and how it should be used. Students understand that they can use it, but ultimately it's up to the teacher to say yes or no on particular experiences or assessments so that the teacher can say, nope, this one needs to be all you this time. Or yeah, let's work with AI to see if we can generate some ideas or a structure for what we're doing. It also establishes expectations for attribution. I haven't looked in the last couple of weeks, but the last time we checked MLA, APA in Chicago, none of the big citation formats had established like a set format for citation. So we looked at what other people were using and selected one to use for our school for now so that we could make sure that people were attributing their use of generative AI. And then we shared this out with students and families. And that's actually how we ended up here today, is through our webinar that we were giving for parents. So that is our context and how we got to where we are. And so now let's look at how we're actually seeing it in application at AIS. And I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Green.
Zabel. So as you saw, I am the learning activator at AIS, and basically what that is an instructional coach. And I can say that I really love generative AI. I use it all the time. That lawyer that Dr. Gasevic referenced earlier is my spirit animal. I identify with him very, very, very much. You know, of course, he's in the news for the one that he got wrong, but they don't tell you how many cases he won using that, right? So I just asked GPT. It says he won a lot. So I'm going to just take you through what we've done so far this year. As Kathy mentioned, we've done a lot in a short amount of time, but we've been very, very mindful that we cannot make too many permanent systematic changes in a rush, because obviously this is an evolving situation. And also it's just best for us to plan long-term instead of being very reactionary. The first little quote here is from a student survey that we've done recently for the middle school and the high school. And it says, personally, generative AI, such as GPT, serves as a search function like Google, except it gathers more important information and puts it together better. So obviously there is some truth to this, but there's also a problem, right? Because unlike Google, we're aware that maybe we don't know quite where all the information came from with GPT, and also there's no guarantee that it's real information, right? But what the students are recognizing is that GPT can synthesize information quickly, right? So we're good. It's good that we're seeing some application for that, but we're also mindful that we need to safeguard against, academic integrity and ensuring that students are using correct information. Students are very aware of ethical concerns. So we've done a good job with this as well. But one thing that I've seen is that ethics, in this case, may be a bit subjective. There are some students who, especially in high school, flat out don't agree with generative AI use in education. And part of that is that they don't feel like they need it because they feel like they're good writers. They feel like it's more honorable to know the process. If you learn statistics and you can do it yourself, then you probably are going to be a better mathematician in the future. Maybe you can see through data better. But then there's others who don't like it because I think it's a form of jealousy in a way. I don't know. I don't know if that's the right word for it. But basically, GPT is closing the gap for some of their friends that they thought, oh, this guy's a little bit lazy. I'm always going to outperform him. And then suddenly they see that now these guys are putting in a bit more of the effort and they're going much further with the help of generative AI. So we definitely saw a lot of comments about, I see other kids using it to cheat, right? But then what we have to be mindful of, especially in K-12 education, is what does cheat mean in this case? So that's something for us to elaborate on a bit more in the future. Similar number of students are using it to summarize text as much as generating written language. This is one of the great uses of GPT or generative AI in general in K-12 context, especially our school is using an American curriculum. All of our text, except for our foreign languages, are in English. But then a lot of our students are English language learners, right? So being able to summarize text is a very powerful tool for a lot of students. And honestly, I do it, right? There's certain apps online that say, oh, you can read this many books, read this book in 15 minutes, and you get the summary. But we have to be also mindful again. What I've seen is that you can ask it to summarize a book, summarize this title, this author, and GPT never fails to give you a summary, right? But I have definitely seen a lot of hallucinations in this process because a lot of times what it's doing is it is summarizing what chapters are available for free online, but it will instead try to summarize the whole book, but it doesn't know the last 12 chapters. So it'll try to figure that out, right? So one way that we can safeguard against that is by teaching the students that whatever you want summarized, you put that into the chatbot. You put that into GPT, and then it can summarize much more effectively rather than just telling it what you want to summarize and then hoping it finds the right information, right? Language models or large language models such as Poe are, we've integrated it into really 3 classes very intentionally. So grade 4, which is the end of our elementary, and then grade 8, which is the end of our middle school. And also we've done it in grade 10 to 12 film. And we'll look at some examples of that in just a minute. For grade 4, we looked at it for creative writing. So getting back to ethics a little bit, what can we say we should attribute to GPT? Where do we cross the line between what GPT has written and then making it our own? That's kind of what we were doing with grade 4. It's really interesting to see how many of our grade 4s can write creatively. They can write good stories. They know what good stories are. Now, GPT, as we've heard a lot this morning, can do most things, but it does them either very generically. It has a particular format it likes to follow. So what we had with the grade 4s is we had it write a story, and then the grade 4s would then change details. And so we're teaching the students to have a conversation with GPT. So give it a scene, give it a scenario, give it characters, but then how do you make a character uniquely yours? And so this still requires creativity. It also still requires the knowledge and the skills of writing. You have to know the outline. You have to know the story structure in order to be able to critique GPT, in order to take it further, right? So in this regard, we're still ensuring that the kids have to know how to write. They still have to know all the things that involve, good storytelling, but it can, of course, scaffold some students who don't quite have those skills or don't quite have that ability, but then it can also save time. And this is the thing I've really stressed with the high school is a bit. Grade 8, they used it in a science, they used it to create presentations for a science report about What is the opposite of extinction? De-extinction. There we go. So they used it to do a report about de-extinction. And for them, again, it was mostly, wow, GPT gives me a lot of information, or I can find a lot of information online. Let's focus on audience. What is the purpose? And I think that's another thing that we can really teach students how to interact with GPT is you have to know what craft you have in mind. Where is this going, right? Who is going to see this? Is it the teacher, or is it more an authentic audience? Is it going beyond the school? And then how effectively is GPT crafting a message that's going to be entertaining for others? And then finally, we've had, text to image. Well, I'll show you some examples of that in just a minute. And then we've had a grade 7 who's written his own chatbot, largely with the help of GPT. So next slide, please. Yeah. So as I said, we've recently done the survey. This is out of 150 students from middle school and high school. Can we show them all? So this is the one that I found a bit concerning, which is that 73% of the students who answer the survey are using it to ask GPT questions. So, and of course, this warrants a bit of a follow-up, like what kind of questions are they asking? But how I interpret this is they're using it as a search engine. They're replacing Google with GPT, and as we're all aware, that's somewhat problematic. And so that's why, as a school, we're still really stressing, use your search engines, find websites, find articles, put that information into your generative chatbot, put that into GPT. Don't ask GPT to find information for you, or at least without confirming it. Matt, I did the opposite of what I said I was going to do. Anyways, also similar to what has been said by the other schools, we've tried to stress ethics by having agreements, which is that we will always cite sources. We'll always let the school know when we've used GPT. That's really the most important thing. Let us know that you've used a generative AI in your project, and then we can help you. We can help to figure out exactly to what extent. As Ms. Abel first said, I work with the tech experts. That's my group. And when we talked about using generative AI in February, and I asked who uses it, everybody said, no, we don't use it. But then as we got a conversation going, turns out a lot of people use it. And not only did they use it, they knew how to beat the checks, turn it in. They knew how to beat that even before we started talking about it. And so that shows you how on top of things the kids are. So we have to be mindful of that too. We can't outsmart them. We have to change how we're assessing. Using the tech experts help us with equity. They offer workshops. They go into classes and teach others how to use it. This is an example of some of the high school film trailers that have been used. And this will be available later. Shows you the different kinds of generative AI, not just text, but also text to image. Also creating movement in their movies, and same thing here. And then finally, this is my grade 7 tech expert, Lucas, and he used GPT to write a Python code to create another chatbot that we can use at school. And so he's currently developing the database so the students can ask questions about AIS, and then it will hopefully be able to give new students even some answers about the school. So I'm gonna hand it over to Mr. Wise really quick, who's going to talk about the future.
Thanks, Mr. Green. So just a couple of things I want to stress from what you've heard from us today. When we very, very first started our exploration, we looked at these so-called AI detectors, and we looked at their reliability, and we haven't seen any reasonable reliability in terms of the AI detectors. And based on the technology being used in generative AI, we don't foresee there being a reliable detector. As you saw earlier, if you were here earlier today, humans are masquerading as AI, apparently. AI can easily masquerade as humans, and so that's the main impetus for our focus on using it reliably, using it as a valuable tool, and appropriately. So choosing when and how, rather than trying to block it or ban it, because it would be inequitable. Inevitably, it would be inequitable. We would be singling out some students, we'd be completely missing others, and that would take away the whole focus of education. It's not about catching people out, it's about helping people grow and be successful. And so that's really been our focus. Just briefly, some of the things we're looking at within our organization, we're exploring. Google has been generating a lot of AI technologies for a long time. In fact, they were the inventors of the Transformer, which was the foundation of ChatGPT. So we're looking at a tool called Gen App Builder, which is sort of like a large language model you can run within your organization. You can specify a knowledge base, and you can have then staff or students could have a conversation around a specific aspect of knowledge that remains within the confines of your organization. So you're not worrying about proprietary information or private information leaking out into a global model. Teachers using it for lesson plan and unit design. Our huge thing, though, is reviewing assessment. So as Cassie mentioned, we really value project-based learning. We really value process over product, and we've been on that journey for many years. So if we can look at what students are doing, that's the one thing I'll highlight from students. We really are going to continue to emphasize process over product, formative assessment, and we see a lot of value there. The idea that often teachers end up being the bottleneck in the classroom because they're the only one that can offer this feedback, but having a tool along the way that can offer some of that formative feedback, and then when they come to the teacher, they can have something more specific that aligns really well with project-based learning. Because it empowers the student to do a lot more reflection and learning with more reliable tools that can more reliably offer feedback on their in-process work. And then the benefit of large computer systems to look at huge ranges of data and make inferences that are valuable to teachers. So then looking if they've used this tool for formative feedback throughout a period of time, being able to look back and use that information to inform teachers and guide teachers, with teachers ultimately being the main user of the tool, the person making the important decisions, and just utilizing the tool as a resource, using it as an assistant in a lot of ways to do things that would be infeasible for a single human being to do. And the only last thing to highlight is it was mentioned in the keynote today. One of the key things is what programs are we building to train people, to teach people how to use these tools? We don't have a systemic approach to learning how to use large language models as a tool yet. So working on developing that and integrating that into standardized education so it's equitable. So we don't have some students who figure it out and get it really well and get the benefits, and then other students who don't quite understand how to use it and end up suffering as a result. So helping to, one of the goals of education is to be equitable, to make sure that everyone has equal access to education and to opportunity. And so building that in the way that we plan our programming and education. And with that, I think we'll move to questions.
Thanks for your presentation, guys. It was really informative. I just want to ask about the formative assessment and how AI can contribute to helping. Because like you said, the teacher is the bottleneck sometimes because he's the only person or she's the only person with the knowledge to share with the students. So can you just paint us a picture of how that actually happens in class, or how that happens over the learning, like how you offer that formative feedback? Thank you.
I can start a little on that. And in terms of language instruction, we've had tools such as like Grammarly, sort of grammar instruction. We've had spell checkers in our word processors for a long time, and those can tell you what's right and what's wrong. But what Jeremy highlighted in terms of them, our students primarily using it, and we were a little surprised at first to learn, using it to ask questions. It emphasizes the social nature of AI, this kind of AI. And people, humans, we tend to personify it when it becomes conversational. I think that's one of the big shifts for us. And so when you have a tool that can start to act more like a mentor, more like a peer or a coach, that changes the way we interact with technology. So they can have a writing coach. They can have someone who's helping them. They can set, as we're a standards-based school, we have specific language writing, reading standards that students need to meet. And so then a teacher or a student could set some goals in a platform and then be able to get guidance on how they're improving towards those goals. So we use proficiency-based assessment, so like developing proficiency, demonstrating proficiency, mastering proficiency. We don't have specific tools in mind yet, but that's what we're going to be looking for and developing because we see that as being a way to increase the reach of teachers. Does that cover a lot of it?
I think also we've seen where with our students who are being brave and jumping in and exploring how it can work for them, we've also got students who will potentially enter the topic of some of our high school students who are taking AP classes, enter a particular topic that they're learning about and ask ChatGPT or Poe. We use Poe primarily at our school, which has ChatGPT in it, but anyway, to generate them study questions. And then they can get feedback. They can answer the question and get feedback. So that the AI becomes a quiz for them that's adaptive to what they know and can ask them more questions on topics that they maybe aren't as familiar with, or getting more questions wrong and less on the ones that they already have mastered. They've used it to generate essay outlines, which they'll then write out a draft. They'll put it back in, and it can look at, where do they need more? They can ask it, where do I need more research? Where can I incorporate more citations? Can you check the grammar of this? Has been talked about before. How can you look at my conclusion? Does it adequately sum up the main points of the essay? So they can use it as a kind of a first level writing tutor that can give them basic feedback. Where it maybe breaks down in terms of where a teacher would come in and be helpful is with things like voice, with things like, imbuing that essay with personality, or the AI can even help with the use of rhetorical techniques, but maybe the artistry could use a human touch. So they can use it for a lot of different, in a lot of different ways, and those first and second level checks of themselves. And then as they move farther through the process, get more targeted, personalized feedback from their teacher.